asked me to tell one of my favorite memories from Rotary. As you know, we were Rotarians. Every February, this club would have us a dinner party. Sometimes we'd have music as the program, sometimes a speaker, sometimes I think we even had little skits coming from Birmingham one time. Well, one I remember was the February party, and we were here doing it at the country club. They announced that the speaker was this foreign visiting VIP from some country, Russia or the Balkans or middle of Europe, I don't remember where, but they built him up real big. So we all come in, and that ballroom had tables all set up for us, beautiful. By the way, Bill Spidle spent years giving us ladies little presents every time to take home. I still got them and use them. At the head table was the offices of this club, and there sat this big Russian bear-looking fellow. He was big. He had hair out and down to here, big mustache. He had on a tacky, ugly, out-of-style, tweedy-looking suit. And he sat at the head table, and while we were eating, I don't think he ever did anything but just scowling both ways. He moaned. So when we had our dessert, Mr. I always want to say his son, Marshall Hunter. I always want to say his son's name. Marshall Hunter, who was president of First National Bank. Those of you that might remember him, he was a very elegant gentleman, always proper. He gets up to do an introduction of this speaker. Well, he starts out with the man's international acclaims and honors and responsibilities, and that goes on and on and on. Then he starts into the man's little things he did in his home country. Well, about that time, some of us started looking around. Something is unusual. Something's going on. Don't know what it is. But then we got to giggling and whispering up and down the table. Behind Job and me was Catherine Jones, who was the French teacher at Donahoe, and her physician husband, Earl Jones. Catherine, being the typical teacher, she said, "Shh, shh, hush, you're embarrassing us. Be quiet, quit giggling." Well, that made us giggle more. 10 minutes or so, finally, Mr. Hunter started slowing down, and it was 15 minutes by the time he got through with the introduction of this fellow. He kind of points to the man stands up, big, huge, looked like a Russian bear to me. Mr. Hunter kind of hesitated. I thought he's trying to be sure he pronounces the man's name correctly, because it was some long, foreign name. He said, "May I present Mr. Wiley Perry." Wiley Perry was a fellow Rotarian, a town father. Everybody knew him. Rotary members saw him every Tuesday, and I don't think one of the people there recognized him. And he took his wig off and his mustache, and it was Mr. Wiley Perry. So, of course, we enjoyed the joke on us. But my disappointment was, I wish somebody had recorded Mr. Hunter's introduction speech. It was fantastic for 15 minutes with all these, I even thought up all these type of jobs this man could have had. And all the time, the board sitting, the people on the head table were just as serious, and that old man was scowling. And it was fun because it was a joke played back on us, and we enjoyed it. So that's just one of my Rotarian stories.
I'll wrap this up with a little bit about how I made my contribution to this club early on. Mal Street, I was a member a couple of years, and Mal Street became president. And he goes, somebody from Donahoe was Anson Academy back in the day, said, "You're a good writer." And, I'm good at most things. And that means you're going to be our Rotopep editor. And I was like, who reads that? Nobody reads that. And you had to you had to give her a summary of the speaker's talk, and then who was there, makeups, who was the speaker next week, and whatnot. And nobody read the thing. I said, I'm going to juice this thing up. And so I made reports that were loosely based on fact. So you take maybe 20 to 40% fact and then embellish it with a little sarcasm, a few insults, and a lot of inside jokes. Word got around. Have you read the Rotopep? Have you read the Rotopep? You better read the Rotopep. You're mentioned in it. Some people had theirs delivered to the office. It was snail mail back then. No such thing as email. Some people had it delivered to the office. The office staff would be waiting for the postman to come so they could get it before their boss would. Some people had it delivered at home. The wives were there waiting at the mailbox because their husbands may be mentioned in it. I grabbed one. This is a short one just to give you an idea. During election season, we would have politician after politician as guest speaker, and they weren't supposed to be political. We had one that was overtly political, and I reported on it. So here's how it went. J.C. Robinson opened our meeting with an invocation. Rodney Greenwood was recognized for cutting off his honeymoon early in order to make the meeting. If you know some backstory from then, that's kind of ironic now. Tim Beck sported a new haircut. I don't remember that inside joke. Malcolm Street broke a promise by returning to the head table. He introduced our guest speaker, or should I say guest campaigner, Sonny Hornsby. I knew we were in trouble when Mal introduced him as an, quote, unquote, outstanding trial lawyer. Hornsby may or may not be qualified for the job he is seeking, the Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court, but he certainly has the gift of gab. He rambled about Churchill, Pearl Harbor, butter, and bagels before getting to the meat of his talk, a blatant campaign speech. Much of his talk centered on his personal background. He then talked about some of the problems with the judicial system, particularly juvenile crime and the prison system. Hornsby also mentioned restitution for crime victims. However, he did not touch on civil matters such as tort reform and did not leave any time to receive questions from Orville or anyone else. Several of us were late getting our meals from the kitchen. I was a little upset at first, but became thankful later because then I had something to do during the speech. And then it had the attendance, 128 including guests, 117 members, 2 makeups, list of the guests, a lot of attorneys, etc. People who made up, we called them roving Rotarians. And then this week, speaker will be Steve Sloan, athletic director of the University of Alabama, will speak about his upcoming special on the Weather Channel. So that kind of gives you an idea of what my rotopeps were. Well, I had been doing these for a few months when we had the dreaded visit by the district governor. And Mal Street pulls me aside and goes, you know, we're going to meet with him, the board is, the night before their Tuesday meeting, and I just want to warn you, he receives our newsletter every week. And I'm looking at that 4-way test, and I violated every one of those 4 ways several times each week. And so we met at the old Anastonian on Noble Street, and I walk in, and Mal's there, and a couple of people are there, and there's the district governor. He's one of these German rocket scientists with Werner von Braun's team from Huntsville. Mal Street goes, there he is. Jay Volker? And I about ruined my pants. He comes up to me, and then grins real big. You're the best writer I've read. You bring energy to the Rotary programs, the Rotary Club. I wish all my clubs had writers like you for their newsletter. It's just so wonderful. And I was like, oh, thank you.